Third POV. Before returning to their respective classrooms, the three teachers explained to classes 1A and 1B about their internships. Aizawa explained they would last for 1 week and that the students who received offers would choose among them. The rest would select from around 40 agencies that had agreed to take on interns. Vlad King and Midnight elaborated further on how each agency specialized in a different aspect of hero work that they focused on. The latter made an example revolving around 13 and rescue operations. Finally, as Class 1A returned to their classroom and after handing out a list of agencies and internship offers, Aizawa pulled Todoroki and Bakugo aside. Aizawa also directed Midoriya and Yaoyorozu to deliver the final choices by the end of the day. Some of the class were surprised to have such a close deadline, yet Aizawa, in his usual cold, uncaring persona, dismissed their concerns and told them to deal with such inconveniences like a pro, before dismissing them. Izuku frowned, feeling like there was another reason for this short deadline, pondering whether it was because of the extra day of rest they were given. As Aizawa left the room with the two boys, Izuku pointedly ignored Bakugo's scalding glare toward him. Izuku sighed when he fully left, silently celebrating his growing success in tuning his former friend out of his mind and attention. If only he could actually do the same, Izuku thought as he began perusing a stack of internship offers. I want to fight crime and bad guys in a big city, Kirishima excitedly exclaimed. I'm hoping for a place with lots of flooding, or a lake, Azui pondered. Serena perked her head at Azui's words. That would sound ideal for my quirk. I haven't made much progress in finding new ways to pull water in from nowhere, and it would look bad on me if I caused property damage in a regular city, Serena thought. Plus. Serena glanced at the back of Izuku with a conflicted look. She remembered her promise to become more independent and less clingy toward Izuku during the sports festival, and mostly succeeded in the first round. However, that backfired when she was ambushed by Shinso and accidentally left her best friend in his time of need. Worse, she felt wrecked about it despite her lack of choice, something Izuku repeatedly pointed out, yet the guilt and separation from Izuku ate at her. I know we promised to be heroes together, but that doesn't mean I have to be tied at the hip to him, Serena concluded and admitted her clingy nature toward her best friend/crush, a problem she noticed occurring more recently since the USJ. He needs a friend, a partner, not a Yandere stalker. If I'm going to become a hero just as great as him, I need to focus on what kind of hero I want to be. Flashes of Team Rocket and her grief-stricken father came up, furrowing her brows. After an hour of pondering, several students spread around the classroom, reviewing each other's lists and offers for greater clarity and ideas. Ugh, you guys have any idea who you want to intern with? Mina groaned, chin planted on her desk while she gazed around, bored out of her mind. Is it really that hard choosing between your offers? Ojiro asked, curious. You had quite a lot, if I remember correctly. Yeah, but I'm not sure, Mina murmured. Feels like most of these were given out of pity for my fight with Bakugo. I'm sure that isn't true. Ojiro shook his head. They probably were impressed with how agile you were. Maybe. Mina nodded slightly, her head lifted from her desk with renewed encouragement. Thanks. Oh, shit. I'm sorry for whining. I mean, I'm the one lucky enough to get offers. Nah, it's good. Ojiro shrugged, nonchalantly. I'm the one who made a show of quitting, because of a wounded pride. Hagakure was right that I could have used the final fights to show my combat skills, and this is the price to pay. I guess, Mina nodded, yet frowned. Still, you showed guts sticking up for what you believe in. I'm sure that was worthy of an offer. Mina's right, dude. Kirishima joined their conversation. That was a pretty manly thing to do. I'm sure you'll get a chance to show your stuff this time. Thanks, guys. Ojiro smiled, rubbing his neck at the attention and praise. Hey, you decided on an offer yet, Kirishima? Sure did. Kirishima grinned, displaying his list and showing it to the two of them and those nearby. The chivalrous hero, fourth kind. The man and his Macamp are as tough as nails, and his agency would be close to the action I want to do. That sounds great. Toru smiled at Kirishima, the nearby boys blushing at the unfamiliar and beautiful appearance of the previously invisible girl. Toru's smile turned to a pouty frown, no less adorable, as she scanned her list. Geez, I'm not sure who to pick that would help me with my quirk as it is now. You got any ideas, is Dash? Toru cut herself off as she and the others stared at the maelstrom of word vomit spewing from their class rep, imagining words encircling the verdant-haired victor of the sports festival as he kept switching at lightning speeds from one offer to another. There he goes again. Many of them muttered. Can't exactly blame him. What if all those offers and being the newest first-year sports festival champion? Jiro shrugged and defended Greenie. Oh. Sorry, guys. Izuku snapped out of his mutter storm, smiling sheepishly at his classmates. You guys have any offers you want to turn in? You're really thinking hard about this, Hazu? Tsuyu asked while Kirishima gave his list and choice to him. I'm sure it will all work out, Ochako declared cheerfully. Izuku blinked in surprise at the use of his new hero name, yet smiled warmly at Uraraka. The green-haired teen was relieved that one of his reasons for picking the name was already paying off. Oh, and I just accepted an agency, too, Uraraka announced. Really? So fast? Momo asked, surprised. What agency? Ojiro asked. The one run by Battle Hero, Gunhead. Ochako revealed. Gunhead? But he's more of a big brawler type of hero, Izuku noted, his mind bringing up the image of a large man wearing an open black combat vest, brown pants, white hair shooting back from his white mask with gun holes for eyes, granting him his name, and his Gatling gun appendages forming out of his wrists like gauntlets. Wasn't your plan to be a rescue-focused hero like 13? Yeah, that is the plan, but after the festival, I thought a battle-focused hero was the right call for now. Uraraka grinned, pumping her arms into the air. Training under him would give me a whole new perspective and expand my potential. That sounds like a wonderful reason, Uraraka-sen, Momo said, a delighted, proud smile on her face. Expanding your brand and skills would make you quite a noticeable hero. Yep. Plus, Uraraka's smile fell in its intensity to a softer, humbler one. After my quick defeat by Todoroki, I think I need to better my battle instincts. Maybe I could have reacted better to his attack if I had the training. That's unfair, Ochako, Tsuyu said. You have good instincts already. You did well in your fight with Sero. What she said, Sero nodded, gesturing to Tsuyu, and then his back. If my back could speak, then it would say you definitely clobbered me. Yeah, plus, it wasn't like it was a fair matchup, Mina argued further. Todoroki's waves of ice would be hard for close-contact quirks like yours. I get it, Izuku said, garnering everyone's attention. You are faced with a weakness in your skill set and want to cover it with new skills. It's an understandable and reasonable decision. It's no different than teaching your Pokémon new moves to counteract their weaknesses, or strengthen their pre-existing strengths, or catching new Pokémon to cover for the others. I think it's a great choice, Ochako-chan. Uraraka's stunned face melted quickly to a loving smile, her cheeks blushing brighter. Thanks, Dikaira-kun, Ochako said. While the two smiled at each other, they were unaware of the dirty and displeased looks and aura of the other girls. Hey, Midori, can you be a sweetie and help me look over some of these offers? Mina gave off her most adorable, irresistible pout and puppy eyes while asking. Me too, Easy. I'm a hopeless mess. What with my quirk's new abilities? Hagakure whined. Okay, don't worry. I'm more than happy to help. Izuku chuckled nervously while appeasing the girls. He was unaware of Uraraka's pouty glare at the two while they stuck their tongues at her victoriously. If it wouldn't hurt, I would also like some assistance in choosing an agency. Zuku? Momo asked softly. I could even help with some of your choices. Sure thing, Yamamoto. Izuku smiled as he took up her list. Though, one at a time. Damn Casanova, Kaminari muttered, slightly jealous of the female attention Midoriya was unknowingly flooded with. Doesn't even realize, does he? Heh. Dude's like some super dense anime protagonist from a shitty anime. Sero snickered, likewise feeling slightly jealous. He and Kaminari were also joined by Tokoyami and Kirishima, gazing at the romance subplot happening before their eyes. Looks like we'll have to look for greener pastures in the other classes and courses. Guess so, Kaminari muttered, his thoughts turning briefly toward a certain vine-haired holy maiden from their sister class. My current interests aren't focused on romantic endeavors, Tokoimi replied, yet couldn't help but briefly think about Reiko Yanagi and her admittedly ghostly appeal. Yeah, sure, Kirishima muttered sarcastically, not at all buying what the two were saying with those distracted looks. What about you, Tokoimi bro? You got any good offers? Instead of directly answering, Tokoimi raised and showed the guys' list and the one name currently circled. Their eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. You got an offer from Hawks. The three exclaimed. Wait, really? Jiro perked up, overhearing their exclamation easily. Number 3, winged hero, Hawks. It appears so. Tokoimi nodded, staring at the offer again as if seeing it for the 8th time would confirm its validity. Dude, you've got to take that offer? Kaminari encouraged, fists pumped to his chest. An offer from one of the top 10 isn't something you should turn down. Not if the pro doesn't have anything useful to teach, Jiro countered. Not all pros will be a great fit for everyone, even one of the top 10. It's still a decision that needs to be carefully considered. Jiro is right. Tokoimi nodded before looking down again at his list. Why would Hawks send me an offer? Could it simply be because I was tied for 3rd place with Todoroki? Tokoimi thought while recalling an image of the ring-winged top pro. Tokoyami's brows furrowed with determination. However, if Hawks believes he has something he can teach me, then I would be honored to accept his request. Back with Midoriya and the girls, Izuku was looking through Momo's list after helping with Hagakures. Izuku paused as he noticed a circle with a question mark over a particular name. Iwabumi? You're considering taking her offer, Yamamoto? Izuku asked. Potentially. Momo nodded, rubbing her shoulder with slight nervousness. Is there a problem? Izuku frowned, piecing together what to say about her choice. Not really. It's just... Izuku paused, looking at the list again before staring at Momo's eyes. Don't get me wrong, Iwabumi is a good hero when it comes to rescue operations. Her Serpentress quirk is great at picking up the sense of disaster victims, but her hero career is more second to her modeling one. Do you know that she usually takes at most 2 female interns every year? Does she? Momo blinked, surprised again at Izuku's wealth of hero knowledge. Izuku nodded. Yes, and a common trend I've seen with those interns, they're usually very pretty girls, Izuku continued. Oh. Momo stuttered, her cheeks reddening as she saw where Midoriya was going. You mean she dresses them and makes them star in her new beauty product commercials. Serena finished for her, a distasteful frown on her face. She will likely spend most of your internship making you shoot a commercial for some expensive perfume. She's more a celebrity than a true heroine. Izuku flinched, sending a sympathetic glance at his best friend. While he wouldn't have put it so bluntly like she did, Izuku knew Serena had a grudge toward heroes who were more self-serving and glory-hungry rather than a heroic one like All Might. Izuku remembered many heated rants Serena would go into whenever Mount Lady was brought up, especially after Izuku told her about her involvement, or rather lack thereof, during the sludge villain incident he was part of. I see, Momo said, suddenly crestfallen, as negative feelings ached within her, inwardly berating herself. Serena noticed, her face wincing guiltily. Sorry, Yamamoto. Serena apologized. I didn't mean to demean or criticize wanting to intern under her. I just worried your internship with her would be more of a waste of your talents. Serena's honesty took aback Momo, her negative thoughts losing a bit of their intensity. They were still there, but quieter than before. Thank you, Mariella-san, Momo nodded, smiling. Serena corrected her, smiling back. Izuku smiled, pleased and proud of Serena's quick clarification before Momo's clearly persistent self-doubts affected her worse. Looking back to see more of her offers, Izuku froze, his eyes locking in on one very famous name. Momo. Izuku stuttered out, his voice wavering. Yes, Izuku? Momo asked. Izuku slowly locked his widened eyes with Momo's, shakily raising her list while pointing an equally shaky finger at the name. Why, you got an offer from Edshot, Izuku announced. Hus! Momo, Serena, and the others near them exclaimed. Whoa, Edshot. Ojiro gasped, wide-eyed. He's one of the top 10 pros in Japan, right? Number 5, currently, Azui nodded. He's very mysterious but cool. No kidding. Hagakure let out an astonished chuckle. His ninja skills and persona make him super popular. Plus, his quirk and ninja skills make him almost untouchable. How did I miss it? Momo muttered, clutching the list in her hand while staring at the name with laser-like focus. Should I accept? Of course. He's a super cool and skilled pro. Uraraka encouraged enthusiastically. I'm sure he would have tons of things to teach you.
Ooh.
Maybe he can make you an honorary ninja. Uraraka posed like Ed Shot, that is to say, like a ninja, which was adorably cute for Midoriya. A kunoichi, Ojiro pointed out. That's the term for a female ninja. Oh, okay, I suppose I will intern under Ed Shot, Momo announced. While everyone cheered, Izuku glanced at the clock, and his eyes widened. Oh, crap. I almost forgot. Izuku lifted himself from his seat, turning to Hagakure. Hagakure, we need to head to the development studio for your costume rework. Oh, I totally forgot. Hagakure gasped, hands slapped over her cheeks. Costume rework? Mina questioned. Well, now that I can turn my quirk on and off, it would be terrible if I went out in my regular costume and somehow I turned it off. Hagakure blushed, the consequences of her quirk deactivating while her only attire were her boots and gloves displayed to herself in a mental image, a very mortifying one. Yeah, Izuku coughed, clearing the same, yet blurred, censored image from his own mind, his cheeks brightening. So, I thought it would be a good idea to take her down to the development studio to see if the support course could help whip up a new suit for her. Uraraka suddenly went still. Support course. Uraraka thought with thundering realization about a certain pink-haired menace, a part of the support course. Hey, how about I join you guys? Uraraka offered. Are you sure, Ochako-chan? Izuku questioned, surprised at the sudden offer from Uraraka.
Yeah.
I've already chosen my agency, so I'm free, Ochako explained. Also, I wanted to see if I could follow up on that advice you gave me back during the festival. Those hover boots you said would work well with my quirk. Oh, right. Izuku nodded, remembering he had said that, before looking conflicted. But I can't just bail when I need to deliver the results to Aizawa. No worries, Zuku. I can hold things down here and deliver them to Aizawa if you can't make it back in time, Momo interjected, smiling. Just be sure to give your final choice to Aizawa-sensei before you leave. Izuku's look of conflict persisted until Momo's pointed look broke through. All right, I owe you one Yamamomo. Izuku sighed and accepted. Momo's cheeks grew red, and she looked away sheepishly. I'll keep that in mind, Momo muttered. Let's go, girls, Izuku said, directing Hagakure and Ochako to follow him out of the class. The boy was left blissfully unaware of Hagakure, giving Uraraka a dirty look, unhappy that her alone time with Easy was ruined. Uraraka and Hagakure also received frowns and slight glares from Serena, Momo, and Mina, the former of whom stuck her tongue out at Mina in response to her early action. Jiro stared at the three leaving with a conflicted look on her face, a slight blush on her cheeks. Azui croaked softly as she easily picked up on the jealous and conflicted looks on the girls, confirming once and for all her suspicions. Even Jiro starting to fall for Zu, Azui thought, a finger pressed on her chin. Looks like I can go forth with my plan then. Momo sighed, shaking off her jealousy for the moment. All right, Mina, let me help you out with your offers, Momo said, directing her attention toward the struggling pink-skinned girl. As they looked over her offers, none were aware of Ida placing his list and accepted offer silently on Midoriya's desk before walking out of the room silently. All except one. Jiro stared at the chief class officer walking off with no fuss or goodbye, a heavy frown on his face and his eyes hidden by the glare of his glasses. Jiro frowned, a bad feeling coiling in her gut. The purple-haired girl walked to Midoriya's desk and stared at Ida's list. A momentary pause stopped the girl, guilt spiking for the invasion of privacy she felt she was about to commit. Still, Kyoko pushed forward, following her gut feeling and hoping to ask for forgiveness later. Picking up Ida's list, Jiro zeroed in on the agency Ida had selected. The purple-haired girl's eyes widened. What kind of bullshit is this? Banned from the internships. Todoroki cringed, leaning further away from the boy with the personality of a primate on steroids. Todoroki's patience was already wearing thin, overhearing Bakuga's constant grumblings during their trek to Aizawa's office, but now the scarred teen wondered if his ears would be joining his face in terms of permanent damage. Maybe that's why he always screams so much. Todoroki pondered briefly, theorizing whether Bakuga's explosions harmfully impaired his hearing, or if his temper was really that low. Looking at Bakuga's outrageous face, it was likely the latter. Are we in an anime? Do I need to repeat myself because you are not understanding, or will you continuously repeat everything I say? Aizawa replied sarcastically, his dull eyes further striking at Bakuga's wounded pride. Bakuga growled, but he wasn't enraged enough to miss that trap that this was, and chose not to go for it. What I mean is why I am the only one being punished rather than any one of those useless extras? Bakuga carefully asked, and even then, he looked so troubled while asking politely that he appeared like he had just eaten the worst, most bitter sandwich ever made. Weird Eyes and Deku Dash. I'm sorry, but none of my students are called Weird Eyes or Deku. Aizawa interrupted Bakuga, an extra hardness in his eyes. Can you say precisely which classmates you are talking about, or are you that incapable of remembering their names? If he weren't also in the hot seat with his teacher, Todoroki would have snorted, finding Bakuga's repeated humiliation rather entertaining. Ishido, Bakuga growled out, teeth mashed together. Was the bitch that scarred my face, and Midoriya scarred my hand, and damaged my pelvis. Icy hot froze Pyurarika in a glacier, yet I am getting punished. Midoriya and Ishido have already been talked to by other teachers, including the principal and me, for the excess of certain actions, and Todoroki is here for his punishment. And now, so are you, Aizawa noted. And all they get is a slap on the wrist? Bakuga questioned, outraged. Ironic thing to say given the past you spilled out, Aizawa thought, yet didn't say out loud. Your injuries are not the first, nor even the worst that the sports festival has seen, and if I recall correctly, you put one of those you are complaining about into the latter category quite deliberately. And yet you are complaining about the simple scar she gave you? Villains and criminals hurt thousands of innocent civilians, even heroes, with various types of injuries, some permanent and even fatal. As a pro-hero, if you can still be one, that is part of the job description you have to deal with. Grow up and realize that this world does not revolve around you. Bakuga's mouth made several noises, evidence that whatever he meant to reply was being choked down by their teacher's valid arguments. Bakuga ultimately scoffed and sat back down roughly. And this punishment for your actions in the sports festival isn't the first infraction in your very short time here, Aizawa pointed out. You were warned to stay on your best behavior. Principal Nizu thought those anger management lessons with Hound Dog would be enough to curb your attitude, but clearly they aren't enough. This school is meant to train the best and brightest of the next generation of heroes, yet you have demonstrated repeatedly that you aren't one of them. You are arrogant, quick to temper, uncooperative, and violent toward any who gives you the slightest inconvenience or challenge. Are we supposed to find such prospects as hero material? Will you act the same toward reporters who ask you a question you don't like? Will you be as excessive toward simple criminals or villains until you accidentally injure them beyond repair? That is not the same. They are villains, the bad guys. Bakuga shot back up from his seat, his palms releasing tiny crackles of mini-explosions. If they want to do crime, then they get what comes to them. Their well-being doesn't matter. Aizawa's eyes glared, perhaps the hardest and brightest that Todoroki had ever seen of yet. This wasn't just Aizawa activating his quirk. Their homeroom teacher was seriously and genuinely pissed off. They don't matter? Will you say the same in a court of law when you get charged for their murder? Will you say the same about innocent civilians you hurt in the crossfire of your battles? Aizawa asked harshly. Bakuga blinked in surprise. Because that's what will happen. Regardless of what you believe, villains and criminals are still human beings with rights, including the right to live, and your excessive brutality could land you in a world of legal hurt should their injuries from you become too egregious or fatal to tend, much less if you harm the very civilians you are tasked with protecting, and no hero license can or should absolve you or your own crimes.
Now sit down.
Bakugo did everything in his power not to shiver at the threatening growl from the very alert and angry insomniac of a teacher, and did as he was told. This attitude shows that our measures were too light on you the first time, Aizawa warned. For your actions in the festival, up to the excessive and deliberate brutality of one of your classmates on live TV, and the attempt to harm your opponent past the match's end, this is your second strike. As such, you will continue your anger management sessions with Hound Dog more frequently. Much more frequently, and you won't be given the courtesy of having them omitted anymore. Additionally, during the week your classmates will be going on their internships, you will stay behind and attend mandatory remedial sessions for as long as we want. And let those useless extras get ahead of me? Bakugo barked in outrage. Well, if by useless you mean capable of giving you that scar and smacking you out of the ring, then you will be very much behind them than you already are, Aizawa retorted, his grin sick and twisted. Bakugo's face looked like it was about to explode, yet he knew attacking a UA teacher would earn him his third and final strike, and that rodent of a principal made it very clear that they were serious about the consequences of what strike 3 would be. As for you, Todoroki, you are not much better, Aizawa said, turning his attention on the thus far silent, scarred boy. Your actions were likewise excessive, but different than Bakugo's. As the principal already stated, we have likewise heard and recorded your actions toward Yaoyorozu and your Pokemon. While we would not have the authority to do anything beyond our school's borders, especially when it was a consented agreement between your father and her parents, their impact during our festival is something we can do. Your mistreatment of your Vulpix is also something to note. Pokemon abuse of any kind is completely unacceptable in UA. Todoroki held his head down in shame, it all the more compounding when he felt Bakugo's disgusted glare directed at him. Even Bakugo found such actions appalling. I understand, Todoroki said solemnly. I take full responsibility for my actions. I have no excuse. Aizawa silently stared at Todoroki, mentally recalling all that the principal and Taisher had briefed him and the others about Todoroki's condition. It certainly didn't absolve him of his actions, but they were something to consider. For your punishment, you'll be taking this offer, Aizawa stated, picking up a paper and handing it to Todoroki. Todoroki gazed at the one offer highlighted and checked, his eyes widening with surprise and confusion. He is an old UA teacher and retired pro who is willing to take you in and administer some much-needed discipline and morals. Afterward, depending on your progress, you will take remedial courses separate from your class after school and detention, alongside therapy. This will also be your first strike. I don't think I need to clarify what 3 would get you, do I? And no, sir. Todoroki shook his head, a chill running down his back, both from Aizawa's warning as well as, unintentionally, from the name of the offer written down, Gran Torino. Sorry, I have to pull you away from your offers, Easy. Hagakure apologized. I know you have quite a number to get through, and instead you're helping me again. I told you before, it's no problem, Hagakure. Izuku refused the apology. I'm happy to help a friend and classmate when they are struggling with something. It is my job as class president. Well, can you at least remember to call me Toru, not Hagakure? Toru pouted. Izuku blushed at the request and the pout from the beautiful girl. Sure, sorry. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Still not used to how she looks like, huh, boss? Pikachu snickered on his shoulder, while his trainer, Hagakure, and Uraraka walked to the development studio. I don't think I ever will, Izuku admitted, telepathically. Seriously, the fact that she was so insecure over how she looked, God, why didn't I get the chance to throttle Uxie? I don't think trying to strangle a legendary Pokemon is a wise thing to do, Izuku, Eevee advised. Though it would be quite spectacular, Shelgon commented. To knowingly and willingly face down a creature such as that would be worthy of my undying respect. Don't give him any ideas. Combuskin, motherly, reprimanded. Izuku snickered. What's funny, Dikaira-kun? Ochako asked, curious. Just something my Pokemon were arguing about, Izuku answered. Your Pokemon? Hagakure questioned, her raised eyebrow finally visible. Oh, right, yeah, you guys don't know. Izuku lightly facepalmed, remembering it was only Serena and Kyoka who knew about his telepathic communications with his Pokemon, and only recently. Willing to correct himself, Izuku spent the next minute or two explaining his ability to the girls. Ah, man, you are so lucky, Dikara. Ochako whined, wailing her fists onto Izuku's side, very lightly. It was so light it was almost ticklish. I know I can understand Erilyn well enough, but it would be so cool to talk with her and the others. Yeah. You know what I wouldn't give to have a full-on conversation with Loki without having to guess what she means with her gestures? Hagakure likewise pouted. Well, there's always Koda to consider, Izuku suggested. Yeah, but I don't want to bother him too much, Hagakure replied. I think if all of us try to convince him to play Poke Translator, he might pass out or have a heart attack. Fair enough. Izuku's sweat dropped, almost imagining the shyest teen in their class collapsing to the ground out of fear. Spotting something with his peripheral vision, Izuku stopped. Oh, we're here. Sure enough, when the girls looked at the large metal doors and the sign by them, they knew they had arrived at the support course's development studio. Thanks for showing us the way, Dikara-kun. Uraraka smiled gratefully at her crush. I think we can handle it from here. Oh, no need. I was going in anyway, too. Izuku shook his head. I needed to talk with them about some upgrades for my hero suit. Well, then, if you please, open the door for us like a gentleman. Hagakure gestured for him, smiling not so innocently. Izuku rolled his eyes, yet smiled. Fine. Izuku made a fake sigh. My mother did raise quite the gentleman. As he moved toward the door, Uraraka leaned in and whispered to Hagakure. You noticed that Dikara's gotten a lot more confident lately? Uraraka asked. Winning the sports festival and getting praised by All Might would do that, Hagakure shrugged. It's not like I'm complaining. Yeah, but I think it's something different. Uraraka smiled softly as Izuku knocked on the metal doors of the studio with a big, charming smile on his face. Like he's coming into his own. And yep, I'm not complaining about that either. Izuku turned to them with that goofy smile of his still on his face, and he began to open the door. This way, my fair maid dash.
Boom.
Izuku's faux British voice was cut off as a large explosion tore the metal doors off their hinges and slammed into Izuku mid-smile, while Pikachu comically flew away like a ragdoll. Hagakure and Uraraka processed the information comically slowly, their innocent smiles slowly transforming into stunned, dropped jaws. Dikairu/easy. Ochako and Toru screamed, unable to see what had happened as smoke covered their vision. Ow, ow, owie. I guess they don't go well together. A chipper voice came out of the smoke. Uraraka paused. Wait, that voice. It's Dash. Gah. Damn it, Hatsum. An annoyed voice yelled from within the studio, the smoke blowing away to reveal it was the pro-hero teacher who managed the support course. Excavation Hero. Power Loader. The wind blowing away the smoke came from a rotom in its fan form. You can't keep blowing up the development studio by mixing whatever you find in it. Hee. Failure is the mother of invention. Power Loader. Thomas Edison said something like that. Hatsum replied as the smoke began to dissipate from where she was, before coughing from the smoke. Even if something I make doesn't work well the first time, it doesn't mean it was a waste of time. As the smoke cleared fully, Uraraka and Hagakure's shock turned to horror. Izuku lay on the ground, back to the floor, dazed, while the pink-haired support course student herself rested on top of him, chest to chest, practically straddling him in her position. May blinked her eyes repeatedly, clearing her vision till it locked onto the boy she rested on top of, the very boy she planned to make her future husband. Hey, when did you get here, Muscles? May asked, delighted. Hatsum. Izuku muttered, shaking his head from the sudden explosion, only for his eyes to lock onto the visible cleavage squishing onto his chest. Izuku stuttered mentally. Boobs. Uraraka and Hagakure unknowingly finished his mental exclamation. Sweet Arceus. Even without Bakadush around, how can you still get exploded, boss? Pikachu whined, his body planted on the wall upside down, slowly sliding down. Once his head hit the floor, Pikachu plopped down onto his back. One of Izuku's Pokeballs opened up, the white light landing between him and Izuku's position. Eevee fully emerged. "You okay?" Eevee asked. Little rattled, but otherwise? All good. Pikachu forced himself back up. Pikachu blinked his eyes open to see Eevee's face, and was immediately confused. "What's wrong with your face?" Eevee looked like he had eaten a lemon, his mouth sucked inwards, his eyes tearing up with barely contained delight. "Why your FF fur?" Eevee stuttered out, short snickers bursting free. The top of Pikachu's fur had exploded outward, resembling a yellow, fluffy afro. "Why you look like a short girder?" Eevee couldn't help himself and busted out laughing, rolling on the floor. "What?" Pikachu shouted, reaching his paws up to his head, instantly paling when he felt the afro. "Gaha. What the hell? Does he really?" Froakie asked, excited sounding. "Don't you dare come out of that ball." Pikachu roared, immediately working on fixing his fur. "And you, furball. Check on the boss and that pink maniac so I can roast them with a thunderbolt." "Oh, okay. Keep your wig up, Pikachu." Eevee calmed down before snickering at his words. "Not helping." Pikachu roared again.
Whoa.
"I see you're just as built as the sports festival muscles," May claimed, rubbing her hand on Izuku's chest and sighed. Maybe more. Did you exercise during the break? Is it a side effect of your quirk? If so, I might need to adjust your measurements for future suits." Chatsum. See, could you please get off of me?" Izuku stuttered out, his face scarlet red. Is it because I'm heavy?" May asked while pouting. "I'm not that good socially, but even I know that's a rude thing to say to a woman, Muscles." It's not that." Izuku stammered and blushed further, hands raised in surrender. It's well, your chest is dash." May blinked, confused, before looking down to see what he meant, noticing how intimately close their position was. Surprisingly, even May's normally unfazed expression faltered and grew pink. "Oops. Sorry about that." May apologized, starting to get up from her position, only for her lower half to accidentally rub against a certain part of Izuku's physique. Both May and Izuku froze, their faces growing brighter as they quickly realized what had just happened. "Oh my. I certainly won't have to worry about making flesh babies with muscles in the future. Lucky me. Gee, get off of him already, you crazy woman." Uraraka yelled jealously. May looked over to Uraraka and Hagakure, both girls red in the face, the former snarling jealously while Hagakure's jealous pout looked like she was about to start bawling. "Oh, hey. I remember you," May exclaimed. "You were in Muscles' and my team in the sports festival. You're, yeah, I completely forgot your name." May looked at Hagakure. "And I don't know you at all." Uraraka gained a comical tick mark on her head. "It's Uraraka, you insensitive maniac." Uraraka fumed. "And I'm Hagakure." Toru introduced herself loudly. "Now, can you please get off easy before he has a meltdown?" "Oh yeah." May made a voice of acknowledgement, finally getting up from Izuku. "Yeah, and I immediately forgot." Uraraka and Hagakure became comically pale, frozen with affront at the girl's sheer, unashamed audacity. "Up you go, Muscles." May helped Izuku up to his feet. As he did, Izuku finally registered May's attire. Rather than the UA uniform, harness, and gear she had on during the sports festival, May Hatsum wore a baggy black coverall, the upper half tied around her hips, exposing her plain black, sleeveless tank top that hugged her chest enticingly. Izuku blushed as his eyes drifted toward the very breasts that he could still feel on his chest, shook his head, and continued his intended casual examination of Hatsum's appearance. The girl also wore black, striped socks and white sneakers, while the only gear she retained from their first meeting at the festival was her goggles. Hatsum's salmon-colored hair was still in those thick dreadlocks, and her eyes were still their green-yellow color, her pupils in the shapes of crosshairs. "So, what brings you all by the studio?" May asked, as if nothing had happened. "Oh, right. We're here for Hagakure's new hero suit," Izuku answered, gesturing to the newly visible girl. Our internships are up soon, and we heard that her new costume is ready to go. May's eyes and grin widened, however possible that was, and whirled her gaze over to Toru. Oh, is that so? May immediately was up in Toru's face, startling the poor girl. Welcome, new customer. You, hello? Toru stuttered, slightly blushing at the close proximity of the other girl. Well, don't just stand there, come on in, May exclaimed, gesturing for the hero students to follow her inside the studio. Power Loader sighed tiredly. Sorry about her. Power Loader apologized. She's really excited today. I think she left excited on her rearview mirror. Ochako grumbled lowly, already regretting coming here, yet followed alongside Izuku and Toru anyway. Izuku chuckled nervously. He recalled how Uraraka wasn't fond of their pink-haired teammate for the Shipwreck Mania event, and Izuku had deduced that it started somewhat based on jealousy that he paid attention and praised May and even Tokoyami more than her. Thankfully, he managed to apologize for his oversight, with Uraraka stating she wouldn't complain if he wanted to be friends with May. Clearly, though, that didn't mean she was eager to do the same. Then again, she didn't seem upset with Tokoyami. I wonder why? Izuku questioned shortly before dismissing the thought, for now. Inside, the hero students looked around the development studio. Whiteboards and pegboards hung on the walls. The former held various mathematical calculations, instructions, and drawings of machines written in marker, while the latter had different types and sizes of tools, wrenches, drills, hammers, etc. Several long tables and workbenches were spread throughout the studio, many cluttered with various tools, materials, and different kinds of machinery, either completed or half-finished. Izuku even spotted May's airjet jetpack recreation on the wall. However, spotting the jetpack led Izuku and the girls to follow their gaze to the corner of the room, and they immediately deadpanned. The state of the corner made the rest of the machine and material-littered tables look clean by comparison. Loads of junk, broken creations, and scattered materials sprawled around in what looked like a makeshift junkyard. The comparison made Izuku remember the state of Dagoba Beach before he and All Might cleaned it up. Izuku spotted one of the propulsion devices May used during the second event. Jaya? Izuku and the girls heard a cry, looking toward its origins. What they found was a short, pink humanoid Pokemon standing on an elevated seat. Its body was short and childlike, with larger, longer arms than its short, stumpy, toeless feet. Its arms ended in three-fingered hands, and gray steel plates stuck out from its hips. The head was large and the same deep pink color as its body, with a lighter shade of pink in the form of circles on its cheeks, its face consisting of ovalish silver eyes, thin eyebrows that gave it a constantly angry expression, and a mouth with square, teeth-like growths extending upwards and downwards from its upper and lower lips. On top of the Pokemon's head were white growths resembling hair in the shape of a high ponytail, while the zigzagging rim of the hair-like growth was in a darker pink color, yet lighter than the body. Finally, set on the table before it was a large hammer-like item that appeared as large as, if not larger, than the Pokemon. Its pole was a dark purple color, which extended to a spherical orb leading up to the head of the item. Metal plates were shaped and formed around the head of the item, which resembled a baby rattler. The Pokemon was holding a regular-looking hammer in one hand, clearly working on hammering in the plates of the hammer on the table. Tinka? The Pokemon cried questionably. Oh, I almost forgot. Everyone meet Tinky the Tinkatuff. May gestured and introduced the Pokemon. My partner Pokemon best friend and the second best inventor I know. Off to the side, Power Loader coughed. Tinkata. Tinky cried out, waving her hand, now free as she set the smaller hammer on the table while lifting the larger one easily over her shoulder.
Ah,
she's so cute, Toru squealed. Oh, look, Uraraka. She even has a perpetual blush like you. I don't know how to feel about that, Uraraka muttered unsurely. Tinky noticed Pikachu and Eevee walking in. The hammer Pokemon leapt off the seat and landed before the two, startling them since the large hammer came with her. Tinkata. Tinky extended her hand in greeting. Eevee, nice to meet you. Eevee greeted warmly, shaking the hand with his paw. Yeah, what he said, Pikachu said, lowering one hand from first salvaging duty to shake. Tinka? Tinky gestured questionably toward Pikachu's afro.
No.
IT isn't a new style. Pikachu yelled, doubling his efforts to get rid of the afro. Tinka? Tinky turned her attention to her trainer, gesturing to the two Pokemon. Oh no, Tinky, they aren't here for gear, right? May asked Izuku lastly. When Izuku shook his head, the Tinkatuff made a noise of disappointment before waddling over to her seat, struggling slightly with the hammer before succeeding and setting it back on the table, picking up the other hammer, and began slamming it onto the larger one. What's she doing? Urarka asked. Oh, she's working on making her hammer stronger and durable like all Tinkatuffs do. May smiled proudly as her partner Pokemon went back to her work and goal. You know what they say, the stronger the hammer, the stronger the Tinkatuff. No different than Quirks, Izuku thought while smiling with respect for the Pokemon. Izuku brought out his Pokédex and pointed it at Tinky. Tinkatuff, the hammer Pokemon and the evolved form of Tinkadink, the Pokédex began. This Pokemon will attack groups of Poniard and Bisharp, gathering metal from them in order to create a large and sturdy hammer. I can think of no better Pokemon for an inventor, Izuku muttered respectfully. Ooh, is that the 4th Gen Sinnoh Model 2.0 Pokédex? May zeroed in on the Pokédex, suddenly appearing at Izuku's side. Nice retro model, nice Pokeball scanning feature on its side, but received complaints about its clunky build and size. Izuku steeled himself, ignoring May's breasts, once again, pressing on his arm. It's fine. I like it. Izuku smiled fondly, remembering receiving it on his 10th birthday. Can't beat the classics, right?
Yep.
That's the spirit, Muscles. May grinned widely and lightly punched Izuku's shoulder. Everyone's got their own tastes. No shame in that. Toru and Ochako pouted again, seeing how close the two were getting. Well, if you all are done being chummy with each other. Power Loader voiced his return from wherever he went, not that Izuku and the others noticed, carrying a briefcase with a number 17 on the side, Toru's new class number. I believe this is what you asked for. Toru took the briefcase with shaky hands, staring at it apprehensively. This is it, Toru muttered. Are you sure it will work? Positive. Power Loader nodded. Thanks to the submission of a few of your hairs, we were able to replicate and integrate the DNA of the strands into the suit. Some heroes often have quirks that can't work with everyday clothing or regular hero suits, so DNA memory cloth was made to rectify the issue, creating clothes and hero suits capable of working alongside their quirks without damage or complications. After the first time Izuku had witnessed Hagakure's original hero suit, or lack thereof, the green-haired hero nerd had mentioned DNA memory cloth as a way to work around her invisibility problem. So, after Izuku and Momo filed some paperwork requesting an urgent costume overhaul and Toru cut a few hairs for material, the rest was history. Originally, the belt was going to feature a switch to activate the suit's ability to blend with your invisibility and would have taken longer, but since your quirk is running at full capacity now, it's good and ready to go, Power Loader added. So, want to try it out now? See if it fits. Really?
Now.
Toru blinked, surprised. The chartreuse-haired girl began squirming nervously.
Sure.
I'll just go find the nearest restroom. No need, May exclaimed, garnering their attention. In the young inventor's hand was a Rubik's-like cube, except for a large blue circle, where the middle square should be. I've got just the thing. May set the cube on the ground and pressed a few squares like inputting a passcode, leaving behind glowing fingerprints. The pink-haired inventor backed away as the circle lit up, and the device expanded rapidly until a sudden fitting room stood before them. Introducing the latest and greatest means of hero costume changing. The Deployable Resizing Emergency Suit Station, or for short, the DRESS. Tinkata. Tinky gestured to the DRESS, like her trainer, with excited flair.
Whoa.
That's so cool, Izuku gasped, starry-eyed, while he inspected the fitting room from all sides. This could help off-duty heroes and even officers change into the proper gear in case of an emergency situation, or in case a disaster or incident happens in unconventional areas like the mountains or woods. Yep, Mei puffed her chest forward, causing it to bounce, smirking with pride. With the DRESS and the added suit added in, heroes can change quickly and efficiently at a moment's notice without having to carry around a briefcase like Dash. Although wouldn't an open roof mean anyone with a higher vantage point or view, or a quirk that allows for flight, levitation, or stretching, can easily see inside? Izuku questioned, standing up on his tippy toes to notice the lack of a roof. Mei paused mid-smile, her wide eyes gained sudden clarity. After a few seconds of silence, Mei facepalmed, yet still kept her wide smile.
Shoot.
I guess I missed that. Mei laughed. And the mechanism on the curtains is a little wonky and opens and closes occasionally. Hoopsie. Ochako and Toru gaped aghast and pale at the pink-haired inventor for such an obvious mistake. Izuku's cheeks grew pink as he realized the potential mishaps with such a flaw. Eevee and Power Loader facepalmed, while Pikachu laughed. Afterward, it was decided that Izuku and Power Loader would have their backs turned from the DRESS, while Uraraka and Mei would stand guard and block the fitting room from their wandering eyes in case the blinds suddenly opened. Izuku and Power Loader sweat-dropped at the arrangement. What kind of teacher do these girls think I am? Power Loader thought, slightly offended at being perceived as some perv, even though that was Midnight's department. I guess I understand their worries, but wouldn't Hagakure just use her quirk and turn invisible before we accidentally saw anything? Izuku pondered. He then double-checked his thought process, wondering if perhaps he had just gotten used to Hagakure being constantly naked in her previous hero costume. Izuku shook his head, realizing how pervy that sounded in his head. Finally, the group heard the sound of curtains being drawn. Oh, okay, done, they heard Hagakure say. How do I look? They all turned, and were left stunned at what they saw. Compared to Toru's lack of costume, this new one was the complete opposite as it covered all of Hagakure's curvy figure, sans her head, though that second skin-like quality brought a new level of draw that was more eye-catching than being naked. Izuku noticed that it and some of the suit's design seemed similar to Uraraka's in a way. The suit was a blend of light pink, white, turquoise, and light gray, with the only remaining part of her old suit being her light gray gloves, with red squares spotted along the wrist and black pads on the knuckles. Everything else could be summarized in one word: flashy. Her lower half, from her waist to her knees, was colored in light gray and pink, the design shaping along her figure in diamond-like shapes, especially her inner, light gray thighs, her pink waist to her crotch, and a light gray diamond-like pattern on her outer thighs. Her neckline was colored light pink, angling down to stripes of white and turquoise on her upper breasts and turquoise on her lower half, while the middle was covered in light gray, light armor that hugged at her large assets in a way that made Izuku's cheeks redden. A bright diamond gleamed in the middle of her chest like a symbol. Her arms were colored in white and turquoise, too, with the outer and inner sides the latter color and the middle with the former, running down to her gloves. Her elbows and knees were wrapped in light gray bands with white diamond-like jewels, while the bands around her biceps held several more jewels, all of which glimmered and shone in a way that seemed to absorb the light. Her light gray belt's jewels were similar to the ones on her biceps, connecting at the front in a shape resembling a ribbon or bow tie, while a gray collar wrapped around her neck above the pink neckline. Her new boots began at the knees, padded in white armor, and ending in boots that were similar in design to Uraraka's but slimmer and more dazzling. The sides held bright blue diamonds, similar yet larger to the one on her chest, by the tibia. The soles and heels of the boots were light gray, and, if the added height was any indication, had lifts to them. Toru's head was uncovered, letting her chartreuse and pink-splotched hair flow freely and wildly. The last addition to her new costume was a pair of light blue shaded glasses that allowed her eyes to be seen and were shaped like diamonds on the upper diagonal ends. Wow, Hagakure! Ochako exclaimed, smiling widely and fists pumping into the air. You look so flashy and cool. I'm sure you'll make Mina and Aoyama jealous. Perfect fit, Mei said after evaluating Hagakure's appearance, giving a thumbs up. Tight hero costumes make for great eye-catchers, especially the Kaguya and more stacked the hero is. Toru blushed redder, but then she noticed Izuku's silence. She saw how he stared silently at her with a slightly open mouth. Toru's nervousness magnified. So, you think easy? Hagakure asked hesitantly, hands clasped together behind her back. Beautiful, Izuku muttered out instinctively. Realizing what he said, both Izuku and Toru blushed crimson. It looks nice. Very nice. The chartreuse-haired girl averted her gaze to the ground, a small smile growing on her face. Thank you, Toru said softly, yet her mind was in a completely different state. Easy said I looked nice. He called me beautiful. As she squealed victoriously, her heightened emotions activated her quirk, and thus did Toru and her new suit turn invisible, save for her glasses. That works as a successful test. Power Loader gestured to Toru's invisible figure, causing the girl to jump slightly in surprise and turn back. Like I said, the suit will turn invisible as you do. However, the glasses are a different matter altogether. My glasses? Toru questioned, taking them off and reviewing them. Yes, despite our advancements, DNA memory cloth is hard to implement on items like helmets or glasses, Power Loader explained, remembering a certain third-year student's own wardrobe malfunctions. You'll have to toss it aside if you want to be completely undetectable, but no worries. The glasses are durable enough that tossing them straight at concrete won't break them. Cool. Toru smiled, her eyes tearing up in joy at the massive changes to her life recently, from finally figuring out why she was cursed to be constantly invisible, accepting the weight of her past and insecurities, growing close to Easy, hearing him stand up for her against what amounted to a literal god, and finally being able to turn her invisibility off and on whenever she wanted. Now, she had a hero suit, a true hero suit of her own. It took everything she had in her not to start bawling her eyes out as she stared at her new costume's glasses. Remember, new hero suits aren't perfect and they need some getting used to, so make sure to note down anything you find irregular or uncomfortable about the suit, and we can take care of the rest, Power Loader advised. Yes, sir, Hagakure declared, her smile more confident and brighter. Power Loader smirked, his heart swelling with hidden pride and enjoyment at seeing another satisfied and excited hero student fall in love with their suit and take it seriously. Power Loader shook his head from his thoughts and turned to the others. So, anything else we can do for you all? The support course teacher asked. Oh, yeah, I also wanted to see the new changes to my suit that I heard you guys worked on, Izuku remembered. I wanted to check on it, and the blueprints for anything I should be aware of. Izuku's words stuttered and cut short as he felt something soft and squishy press onto his back while hands began roaming around his body. Izuku, face frozen with trepidation, slowly looked behind him and paled at what he saw. Ooh, I almost forgot how muscly you actually are, Muscles. These baggy clothes of yours are quite deceptive, May hummed, her hands touching and stroking along Midoriya's body while her large chest pressed against him. Oh, have you gotten taller recently? The added height definitely makes you out to be a leaner, swimmer-like bod. Hatsum, what are you doing to Cairo? Ochiko stuttered out, her blank face paling in horror. Hagakure likewise gaped in shock and horror at her crush being blatantly groped by the pink maniac inventor. Power Loader face-palmed at May's lack of boundaries. I'm just feeling up his muscles, taking measurements to see if the new suit will fit, May answered, nonchalant about what she was doing. We don't want any chaffing or tears, do we? Oh, and lighten up a bit, Muscles. Stiff muscles will throw off my measuring. Measuring with your fingers? Izuku wanted to say, but was too red in the face to let any noise come out of his mouth other than a choked gasp. Though with the way May's hands methodically and precisely traced every line and muscle on his body, Izuku almost believed she was measuring him precisely with her fingers. The redness of Izuku's face started making him lightheaded, noticing the rough calluses of her palms, the way her breasts squashed onto his body like marshmallows, the scent of oil and metal that somehow sent shudders down his spine. Izuku could feel something build up within his mind, a swell of energy beginning to awaken and course throughout his body. It wasn't one for all. That much was clear to Izuku. It felt like the same energy he felt throughout the festival and before, that blue, aura responsible for his aura spheres and random bursts of energy. Looks like Boss is enjoying himself, Pikachu snickered while Eevee facepalmed. If you can sense what we can, that is debatable, Combuskin replied telepathically. He should be flattered and proud, Shelgon commented. A fertile female has shown a clear interest and appreciation for his figure and is marking him with her scent. Bold, but impressive. I believe you forgot to mention invasive, Froka countered. Ooh, can't forget about this part, May stated as her eyes zoomed in on Izuku's tightening crotch, and unmistakable hunger hinted in them. Wouldn't want any unfortunate chaffing here. Mia's hands began to near their target. Ochako, Hagakure, and Power Loader paled terribly, realizing what May was about to do, and were about to speak up. Yet they were a second too late. Izuku's eyes shut open, and something snapped within. A surge of primal instinct awoke, and Midoriya followed it. Izuku's hand shot forward and gripped May's wrist, ceasing her motion cold. May blinked in surprise, but before she could say anything, a whirlwind of motion had May blink 1 second and found herself in another position the next. May had been forced to stand straight, her back pressed against a table side, and pinned between the cool metal and the wall of muscle on her front. May looked up at the man pinning her against the table and froze completely still. Izuku's gentle, nervous face had turned hard, his gaze cold and serious. May watched with analytical fascination as the emerald green of his eyes transformed into a glowing ocean blue, like ink spilling across a canvas. Izuku's hand still held hers in an iron grip, while his other gripped her chin in a strange, yet arousing mix between gentle and forceful. May felt her body shudder, overwhelmed by an unseen force or air seeping from Izuku, an aura that demanded her utmost attention, and she obeyed. Enough, Izuku growled softly, his voice deeper and echoing into her skull in a way that made her legs weak. Apologize.
Now.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. May squeaked out, her often confident voice now small and submissive. A heavy silence dropped afterward in the studio. Ochiko's and Toru's faces were slack-jawed yet red, Izuku's sudden turn and demeanor impacting them just as heavily. Toru's legs began to shake with how weak they had gotten, and Ochiko could feel her heart thumping a mile a minute. Power Loader's jaw hit the floor, completely stunned that anyone, could be capable of reeling Hatsum in and get her to apologize, much less listen to. Even Tinky was shocked out of working on her hammer by how easily her stubborn, hyperactive trainer was left cowed by a previously unassuming boy. Eevee and Pikachu shivered, they and the rest of Izuku's Pokemon recognizing the surge of energy that coursed through them as they knew it did their trainer, the source. Suddenly, the surge of energy and primal instinct Izuku felt faded back into whatever recesses of his consciousness it was from. Izuku blinked, befuddled, when he and May realized what had just happened, their eyes widening while their faces turned scarlet. Like a bolt of lightning, Izuku zipped away from Hatsum by a good meter. The two were left panting and gasping for breath, yet their eyes were glued to each other's, never breaking contact, even if their bodies did. I'll go and see if the S-suit and measurements align, May stuttered out, gesturing behind her. The two nodded slowly. Why yeah, that's what I'll do. Why yeah good. Izuku also stuttered out, nodding, his hair and face giving an accurate representation of a tomato. May nodded again, blinking and realizing she was moving before her mind could process, as if automatically obeying and following Midoriya's unintentional command. Hatsum didn't know why, or how whatever happened, but looking inward, she knew at least one thing. She liked it. Izuku and the others watched her go, awkwardly standing and not sure what to do next to progress from whatever had just happened. Mr. Powerloader. A voice called out from just outside the room. Everyone turned to see that it was Professor Teicher, knocking on the side of where the door would have been while gazing behind him at its destroyed remnants. Another explosion? The professor asked cheekily. How'd you guess? Powerloader replied with the same level of sarcastic cheekiness. Professor Teicher, what are you doing here? Hagakure asked, a slight smile on her face. Ms. Hagakure, a pleasure. I'm glad to see that you're thriving with your newfound changes. Taisha bowed and smiled, before shifting to a serious face. As for my purpose here. Taisha directed his gaze toward Izuku. I am here for you, Mr. Midoriya. There is something rather urgent that I must talk to you about. Aizawa sighed tiredly as he waited at his desk, thinking about the problem children he had dealt with recently. The insomniac teacher felt again that their measures against Todoroki may have been too light. He was willing to administer the same punishment he had given to Bakugo to Todoroki, but Niza dropped the curveball of sending Todoroki to Gran Torino instead. At first, Aizawa was befuddled, unsure who this retired old pro was or why sending Todoroki to train under him was a good idea. Granted, he knew this was as much a blow against Endeavor as it was to Todoroki, keeping his son and protege from training under him as the pro hero wanted. Still, Aizawa figured the same result would have been achieved if Todoroki stayed at UA like Bakugo. Then Nizu informed him about the retired pro's past and credentials, and he understood. At first glance, being taught by the same pro who taught All Might would have been seen as a reward, but hearing how brutal and efficient the old man was and how much the big showboat was terrified of him, Aizawa realized the next week would be hell for Todoroki. If anyone can straighten out Todoroki's behavior, it'd be him, Nizu had said. Then there was Bakugo, and Aizawa felt the boy was already a lost cause. Despite what Aizawa said to Todoroki, the UA staff was mostly comprised of heroes and could operate outside the facility like any other pro, especially if they had evidence. Bakugo's foolish decision to announce and record his past misdeeds during the sports festival had given Eraserhead and Nizu enough dirt to start investigating Bakugo's and Midoriya's past. Aizawa knew the principal was likely digging up as much dirt on Aldera, the school where the two boys previously attended, to have both it and Bakugo shut down. However, Nizu still believed they had a moral obligation to give Bakugo one last chance for redemption to stay at UA. Thus, until Bakugo's third and final mistake occurs, they wouldn't follow up on any major action. I'll give it till final exams. Aizawa bet on how long Bakugo would last, a small vindictive part of him almost hoping Bakugo would mess up sooner, so he could keep such a violent and hopeless bully from becoming a pro. Aizawa could still remember Bakugo's brutal acts toward Ishido during their fight, feeling sick for having witnessed it and not able to do anything about it till now. The final thought made the tired teacher flinch at the hypocrisy. It was only recently that Aizawa had decided to step up and finally do his job as a teacher, instead of the rather illogical, ironic route he had taken to rationally scare the students he saw had worth and weed out those he didn't. His expulsion scare, he thought, would have made the hero students take things seriously while getting rid of those who he thought didn't have what it took to be heroes, and thus spare them the same fate as Shirakumo. Aizawa sighed, ashamed that it took a green-haired kid he thought was among the latter to make him realize how foolish he had been. However, if he had to do so one last time, Bakugo wouldn't be someone I would lose sleep over, Aizawa thought honestly to himself. Aizawa heard his office door opening, looking up from his desk. Speaking of which, Aizawa mused as he watched another person affected by the problem child enter his office and sit down. Hitoshi Shinso was a boy Aizawa felt was so much like him, it was like looking into a mirror. Same tired eyes that hinted at very little sleep, slumped shoulders, lanky figure. Even their quirks were somewhat similar, not flashy or useful in direct combat, but devastating in the right context. Shinso wasn't a hero student, but a general studies student, just like Aizawa in his first year at UA. There were differences between the two, however, it was their similarities that Aizawa focused on and didn't like. The silence between the two was tense, tired eyes staring at each other, measuring the other. Finally, Aizawa spoke with, I don't like you. Huh. What a way to start, Shinso snorted dryly. Here I thought you were going to give me tips on how to sleep better. Dry wit, Aizawa noted, another similarity between them, and didn't like that either. If you want to exit this office with your future prospects intact, you'll tone down that attitude with me, kid, Aizawa warned. Oh, is my attitude what's keeping me from being in the hero course? Shinso challenged, raising an eyebrow. Aizawa raised an eyebrow of his own back at Shinso. You know why you aren't in the hero's course, Aizawa pointed out. The challenge in Shinso's eyes faded, the bags under his eyes almost growing in their shame. "Because I gave up," Shinso answered, looking down at his knees. Aizawa nodded, even if Shinso couldn't see. Despite the entrance exam's practical portion leaning more toward those with combative quirks, support-based quirks aren't entirely disadvantageous, Aizawa continued. Even if your brainwashing quirk wouldn't have worked on the robots, there were still opportunities to gain points. Opportunities you squandered because you didn't try. You took the easy route and didn't bother with the entrance exam, banking on proving your worth in the sports festival to get you into the hero course. While you admittedly went far, your methods are not the kind UA sees in its heroes, but then, I'm not the first person to have told you that. Shinso flinched, his mind flashing the image of a green-haired boy reaching his hand to him. Shinso nodded. Aizawa sighed, wiping his face as he contemplated what he was about to do. Aizawa opened the drawer of his desk, pulled out a notepad, and tossed it onto the table. Shinso blinked, looking up at the pad in front of him. The indigo-haired boy looked up at the teacher, curious eyes awaiting permission. Aizawa gave the briefest nod, allowing Shinso to take it. Shinso stared back at the pad, apprehensive, but took it. As he scanned the words on the pages, the confusion in his eyes grew. "What is this?" Shinso questioned, looking at the various steps and instructions. "Those are the instructions you will be following to train yourself," Aizawa stated. Shinso continued staring at him with surprised yet confused eyes. "Midoriya was right that your physical capabilities leave a lot to be desired. Not every villain will fall for your quirk, so you'll have to defend yourself beyond the means of your quirk. When I started at UA, I had to work hard to enter the hero course. And now, so will you." "Why, you'll train me?" Shinso gasped. "No," Aizawa responded bluntly. "You aren't one of my students. If you were, then things would have been different, but as things stand, you aren't, and I am in no mood to reward your behavior at the festival with such special treatment. After classes, you will be required to attend therapy with Hound Dog, unofficially on record. Afterwards, you will follow this workout routine strictly and precisely, every day for the next several months. The support course will be creating a version of my capture scarf for you to practice with, but you'll have to work it out for yourself." Shinso stared at Eraser in shock, his eyes darting between the teacher and the notepad repeatedly. "I get it," Shinso thought, realizing that Aizawa wasn't going to give him any special attention, but knew how it felt to be a student with aspirations to the hero course with a quirk unsuited for combat. This was as far as he was willing to give him aid, but everything else was up to him to figure out. Shinso looked at the workout again, flinching at the instructions. "Looks tough," Shinso muttered. "You must have put yourself through hell." "The workout is twice as much as I went through," Aizawa clarified. "I'm not your mentor, and you aren't my protege. I'm not interested in creating another Eraserhead. I want you to be something better." Better than me. Aizawa kept that part to himself, but it was no less true. Shinso had potential, but his attitude and lack of effort were his biggest weaknesses. This was the best way to eliminate those flaws without giving the boy special treatment, if the boy followed the workout exactly. If he doesn't, then whatever comes will be on his head. Shinso flinched at the brutal honesty in Aizawa's voice and his narrowed eyes. "Fair enough," Shinso replied, nodding his head. As he stared at the notes, he imagined Midoriya, his back turned to him as he walked toward a shining light, while he was far behind him. Determination burned in his chest as he wanted to catch up to him, not just in strength, but in heart. "You put your hope in me, that I could be better. I won't let it be put to waste." "Good." Aizawa nodded, gesturing toward the door. "Better get started." Shinso blinked, surprised.
"Now."
"You got something better to do?" Aizawa asked rhetorically. Shinso stared in slight disbelief at Aizawa for a few seconds before sighing and nodding. Shinso soon left the room, leaving Aizawa once again alone. Aizawa sighed once more, pondering to himself if he had made the right decision. His new desire to take his teaching responsibilities more seriously clashed with Aizawa's distaste for Shinso's past actions and attitude. Part of him felt that being so harsh with Shinso and leaving the boy to train and fend for himself was no different than what he had been doing in the past. At the same time, if he started spending time outside of class training his own student, a protege, he would be unfair to the rest of his charges in 1A, giving special treatment, something he always held a distaste for. Plus, training a student after hours will seriously mess with my sleep schedule, Aizawa thought, reaching out for his cup of cold brew. Looking at the brown drink, he pondered whether to take another sip of it or go over to the corner and take a quick nap. Before he could make a decision, he heard a knock on his door. Cursing silently, Aizawa voiced for the person to come in. The door opened to reveal Yaoyorozu with a stack of papers. "Yaoyorozu," Aizawa greeted. "Are those the chosen agency lists?" "Yes, sir," Momo nodded, placing the stack on his desk. "The only one missing so far is Zukazai Midoriya-san's," Momo corrected, blushing. Aizawa caught the slip-up, raising an eyebrow. "At least they're getting along," Aizawa noted. The homeroom teacher found it a positive development, knowing the class's cohesion and solidarity would function well with leaders who got along well. At the same time, Aizawa noticed that Momo's blush held more than embarrassment. It held affection. Aizawa grew slightly concerned. Interpersonal relationships can lead to a lot of drama and stress, especially in our line of work and especially romantic. "And Midoriya?" Aizawa questioned, tabling the thoughts for later. "He went with Hagakure and Uraraka to the development studio to check on their hero suits," Momo answered. "He hasn't come back yet, but I'm sure he will turn in by the end of the day." Aizawa breathed out from his nose.
Fine.
"Good work, Yaoyorozu," Aizawa nodded, gesturing to the door for her to leave while turning to the papers. However, after a few seconds, Aizawa could see through his peripheral vision that Yaoyorozu was still present. He looked up to see that she was fidgeting. "Is there anything else?" After a moment of clear contemplation, Yaoyorozu sighed. "Yes, sir," Momo nodded, a guilty yet resolute expression on her face. The student went to the stack of papers, picking up the top one, and handing it to him. "It's about Ida's pick." "I'm concerned." Narrowing his eyes, Aizawa took the piece of paper and looked at normal hero, Manuel. An odd choice, not the most well-known or popular pick among Ida's offers, Aizawa analyzed. Suddenly, Aizawa's eyes widened a smidge as he recalled where the normal hero's agency was located. Hosu, where his brother was attacked. "Don't tell me." Aizawa picked up his cold brew and took a large sip. This was going to take a while. Izuku fidgeted nervously on the couch in the private teacher's lounge. It was the same one where All Might informed him about the sports festival and the symbol of peace's desire for him to win the whole thing to announce Izuku Midoriya as All Might's successor. In a way, Izuku both succeeded and failed in his task. Sure, he won the festival, but his pride and ideals forced his mentor to abandon the announcement of being All Might's successor. Back then, Izuku didn't care as much about winning the festival for All Might's request as he did all the other reasons throughout the tournament, i.e., ending Momo's forced engagement, defeating and saving Todoroki from his ill-conceived path, and overcoming Bakugo, finally putting his past with his former bully behind him even if the blonde couldn't do the same. He didn't regret the outcome, but the current situation he found himself in made Izuku feel slightly worried. Now, as Izuku sat on the couch, he looked at the three individuals sitting across from him on chairs. Nisa took the seat to Izuku's right, sipping on a cup of tea, looking as calm and visibly peaceful as ever. All Might took the left seat, wearing an extremely baggy suit while fidgeting just as much, if not worse than Midoriya, only furthering Izuku's concern over his meeting. Finally, sitting directly in front of him, Tengaka Taisher, his poise graceful and steady, took to the seat like it was a throne to his king. The silver-haired man stared at Izuku with a fond smile that didn't reach his steely, piercing eyes. His amulet hung around his neck as always, Izuku doing his best not to stare at the thing that constantly gave him a new rise of a different emotion every time. Izuku gripped his right knee, physically forcing it still before it could rapidly fidget up and down. When the Pokemon professor first asked to speak with him, the green-haired teen thought it was a formal routine check if he was still feeling some effect of Mesprit's blessing, or if their encounter with Uxie at Lake Acuity had affected him with any late developments. Now, As he had All Might and Nizu sitting before him, Izuku felt as if he were a soul in Hades, standing before the three judges of the underworld. Mr. Midoriya, Nizu started, setting his teacup down on one of the chair's armrests. Thank you for coming to meet with us. I must apologize that we had to pull you away from your time in the development studio. Reviewing the recent changes to your hero suit. Yes, sir, among other things, Izuku nodded, quickly shaking away the thoughts of Hagakure and Hatsum before they could return with a vengeance. And it's all right, Principal Nizu, sir. I take it that this meeting is about what happened on Lake Acuity. Perceptive, Mr. Midoriya. Nizu smirked, pleased. Yes, all three of us, Professor Teicher especially, are aware of your incredible encounter at the lake. Some would say legendary? A brief silence held firm and awkward in the room. Izuku's mouth gaped open and closed, unsure whether to say nothing about the bad joke or respond as if nothing happened. His mentor decided otherwise. Ha ha, quite the apt and hilarious sense of humor you have, sir. All Might nervously laughed, a few drops of sweat rolling down his brow. All Might looked warningly toward his protege, mouthing to go along with him. Hee, why yeah, Izuku chuckled, sweat dropping. It was certainly accurate. And honest. Useful traits for an up-and-coming hero. Nizu chuckled, amused. I take it you haven't decided on an internship yet. The number of offers you've had must be overwhelming. It's a bit much. More than I was expecting. Izuku rubbed his neck, looking between all three of them. Is that another reason why you wanted me here? Did you bring me here to talk about an internship offer from you, All Might? Tashinori smiled softly, amused and touched at the hopeful tone in Midoriya's last question. I would be happy to train you further under my wing, young Midoriya. But no, that isn't why we brought you here. All Might shook his head. At least partially, Teicher spoke for the first time. We do have an offer for you, Midoriya, a special one, but we have more to discuss before then. Izuku frowned, confusion outweighing his disappointment. He was unsure what this meeting had to do with all three adults and what this offer could be. Okay, so, what is then? Izuku asked. Teicher's gaze looked to magnify its intensity on Izuku, the boy almost feeling weighed down by the man's very presence. This is about what I promised you before at the sports festival, Mr. Midoriya, Teicher replied. This is about your aura and the truth behind your abilities and yourself. Izuku's eyes widened in shock, the memory of Teicher's visit before his battle with Todoroki flooding back into the forefront of his mind. I forgot about that, Izuku thought, feeling stupid for forgetting something he was so desperate about back then. Izuku's brain clicked as it registered Teicher's words. My abilities? You mean one dash. Izuku shut his mouth quickly before looking alarmingly between All Might and Nizu. It's all right, young Midoriya, like Teicher, Nizu knows about One for All Might revealed. Although you did slip up when you mentioned you used to be quirkless. All Might gave Midoriya a reprimanding eyebrow that was softened by an amused smirk. Izuku blushed, embarrassed. Yes, well, One for All is relevant to this conversation, especially in recent events, Teicher noted. Do you recall the instances where One for All and your aura felt different? Different. Izuku repeated, confused. As All Might mentioned during your training, One for All's stockpiled power has been theorized to be composed of the physical abilities and life energy of its past users, their aura to be precise. Nizu jumped in. In essence, you have been using aura all this time, but have there been instances where the aura you have used felt different than the aura of One for All, or if there was some time where you felt something more than One for All's aura? Izuku grew quiet as he took the question to heart, trying to figure out what they meant. It didn't take long before Izuku's eyes widened as those special instances started flashing in his mind. Aizawa's quirk apprehension test, his first battle training exercise, its aftermath, his Pokemon battle with Todoroki, the aura spheres he formed in the USJ, Lake Verity and the sports festival, and the explosion of power he felt during his fights against Shinso and Todoroki. Yes, you see it now. Teicher nodded, a small smile on his lips. What you've experienced was not the same as the added aura you gained via One for All, but your own aura, your own power. I knew there was something off whenever they happened, Izuku admitted. The tiredness I felt, the buzzing headaches, it was all so different than when I normally used One for All. And those phantom blue flames. A physical manifestation of aura, a powerful one at that, Taisha explained. Not something that any One for All wielder has ever achieved? Correct, Tashinori? Right. All Might nodded. Despite One for All's ever-growing power, never have any of us been able to form an aura sphere, or any other ability. But it could still be part of One for All, Izuku pointed out, his mind beginning to reel, overwhelmed. Didn't you say One for All would be stronger when you passed it on to me? Maybe this is some evolution of One for All. A quirk awakening. True, there are instances where quirks can evolve over time or with the right stimulus to achieve new abilities, Niza nodded. However, there are clear distinctions between your aura and One for All. Your lightning, for example. My lightning? Izuku repeated. Whenever you use One for All in your full cowling technique, you gain a bioelectrical aura, for lack of a better term, of green lightning around your body. We theorize this is an outward expression of your use of One for All, along with its vast power flowing outward in a manner that wouldn't overwhelm your body, Nizu explained. However, whenever you created your aura spheres, they weren't green like your lightning. Furthermore, in your battle with Shinso, when you awakened that explosion of aura, you gained more than those phantom blue flames. Remember? Izuku looked down as he recalled the moment he achieved that state, eyes widening as he remembered his lightning. It turned blue. Izuku gasped. Indeed, Taisha nodded. This change of color we theorize was your aura blending with One for All's, a fusion between the two different auras. My own aura, Izuku muttered, looking at his scarred right hand and his normal left one, the same one he used to create the incomplete aura sphere in the second event. He recalled how different the sensation felt from One for All, the storm and fire that burned and flowed inside him, compared to the rush of energy the transferable quirk felt. So, One for All allowed me to access my own aura? Partially, All Might answered. Think of One for All and your aura like two different lakes of energy, each one blocked by a dam, and when you use either one, you are opening the gates and allowing it to flow. However, there is a third dam between them, a river connecting the two lakes. When you gained One for All, I assumed the two lakes, your aura and One for All, would have fused, but instead, you created that bridge between the two, and every so often, when you get serious enough, you open that third dam and allowed that other lake, your aura, to mix with One for All and use it. Then there is the second dam, Taisha added. Previously, it appeared you had no idea how to open the second dam and use your aura, much like most of the world. However, when you created those aura spheres at Lake Verity and the second event, you weren't opening the third dam, you were opening the second. One for All may have helped jumpstart the process, but you, Izuku Midoriya, were always able to open that second dam, to use your aura, just like me. Izuku lifted his head, staring at Taisha in surprise. I like you? Izuku questioned. Like me, Taisha smiled and raised his palm. Instantly, as Taisha's eyes glowed a stormy gray-blue, an aura sphere grew and formed in his hand, complete and glowing with power. Izuku felt it, his aura, buzzing in response to Taisha's wafting over him. That isn't a quirk, Izuku instinctively said. Yes, I am quirkless, but I was never powerless, Taisha stated. I am a chosen, an individual with a strong connection to aura and can wield and express it effectively and outwardly, and so are you, Midoriya. You are chosen. Izuku stared at the aura sphere, his head buzzing with more than a responding aura, but with shock as his worldview began to shift completely. His eyes grew wet while his fingers clenched tightly, painfully even. Quirkless, but never powerless, Izuku repeated Taisha's words, their meaning drawing up the pain of his past for being called as such. He was mocked for being quirkless, called defenseless and useless for it, called a deco for it. Now, it turns out, he wasn't powerless. He never was. Even before One for All, before All Might, there was something special about him. A power he held beyond a quirk. A power beyond a quirk, Izuku muttered, astonished.
How?
Remember when I first told you about One for All's aura, young Midoriya? All Might spoke, a remorseful look in his eyes as he noticed Izuku's state. I told you there were legends about those who wielded aura as a power before quirks. Aura guardians, Izuku gasped. That is what I am, and the order that which I am a part of, Taisha revealed. Izuku's eyes widened at the mention of an order. We are not alone, Izuku Midoriya. There are many of us, other chosen, and I am part of an order that seeks out and finds other aura wielders, other chosen, to train and understand their aura, and to wield it for the protection of people and Pokemon. Like heroes? Izuku asked, his interest fully captivated. Heroes before heroes, as you've known them, Taisha smirked, proudly, the aura sphere disappearing as he lowered his hand. Our order, the Order of Aura, has existed for thousands of years, stretching on to the days of myths and legends. We once worked more openly in those ancient times. But as society advanced and times changed, we decided to operate in the shadows, working behind the scenes to maintain the peace between people and Pokemon. Whoa! Izuku gasped softly, his mind conjuring images of secret warriors across the world defending the weak and innocent, an age of heroes before the superpowers that everyone knew. But as he thought about those superpowers, quirks, something started not to line up. Wait, if you guys existed for thousands of years, then you must have been around during the dawning of quirks, right? Taisha nodded. Then, why has no one heard of you? The Order decided that our existence was best left in the shadows, and not to interfere with the events of heroes, villains, or quirks at all, Taisha answered. But why? Izuku asked, his voice harder as his mind brought up the past, remembering all the mockery and bullying he faced for being quirkless. Powerless. A useless deco because he didn't have the power of a quirk like everyone else. But if he had always been able to use aura this whole time, if people knew about it, then he might never have been bullied. Izuku's fingers clenched harder. Why hide it all? Why not reveal yourselves when quirks started appearing? Midoriya, do you recall how the dawning of quirks transpired?
Mizu asked.
Izuku blinked at the sudden question but thought hard, remembering his history lessons. It was a chaotic time, Izuku answered. Fear, turmoil, riots and protests erupted everywhere. The first villains used their quirks and Pokemon in the chaos. Quirkless and quirked people alike feared and hated each other. Correct, Taisha nodded. The world was in one of its most tumultuous states, but it wasn't only heroes who quelled the chaos. Izuku perked up, intrigued. Yes, during the beginning chaos of the dawning, many lives of people and Pokemon were in jeopardy, and our Aura Guardians acted with greater transparency by guising our gifts as quirks. However, in doing so, we shared in the fate of those who feared this newfound phenomenon. Taisha's eyes grew saddened as he imagined his predecessors ganged up and mauled by the anti-quirk rioters. Darker forces began to notice us. All Might's frown grew heavier, his eyes narrowing knowingly. And heroes began to rise to stem the fighting. We retreated back into the shadows and left the glory of peace to these new public servants while we tended to our losses. Izuku's eyes softened, and his rising anger began to temper. Burgeoning suspicions and accusations of the Aura Guardian's absence from the world began to lessen as he listened to the similar hardships and sacrifices they had suffered in the past. Whilst quirks began to be accepted into society and grew with each passing generation, we discovered a grim conclusion, Taisha continued. The ability to wield aura, to be chosen, was already a rare enough gift, and, with the exception of certain strong bloodlines, kindlings could occur randomly. However, as more people manifested quirks, our numbers continued to dwindle. It became clear to us that it would be rare for one who manifested a quirk likewise to be chosen. Almost 5% so. 5%. Izuku gasped, shocked at such a low probability. Indeed. A rare gift only further scarcer. Taisha sighed, the heavy weight of this ongoing dilemma. The quirkless among the populace proved to be where further chosen could be found, but with fewer quirkless born every generation, we fear our order will one day fade too in the sands of history. Our ancient knowledge and histories forgotten. Izuku's gaze fell aimlessly as he processed this information. Suddenly, the importance of quirkless people in the world began to become all the clearer to Izuku Midoriya. It was to Midoriya's shame that he thought similarly to the rest of the world toward quirkless people. Pity. While he still believed being quirkless did not mean useless, as Bakugo and other quirkists would say, Midoriya couldn't help but internalize that being quirkless in a world full of superpowers was a disadvantage. He didn't like it, but it was the reality beaten into his skull by Bakugo, the teachers, and adults of his life. Now, with what he was being told, Izuku felt elated. There was a reason, an advantage even, to being quirkless, something people like him would be luckier to have than most. Is this why I was quirkless? Izuku asked himself, hopeful. But as Taisha laid out the obvious problem, that joy turned to sadness. The completely quirkless individuals who had a better chance of safeguarding this powerful and mysterious legacy were gradually disappearing, and this ancient order of peacekeepers, their history and culture, were increasingly threatened by the fear of extinction. Additionally, the ability to wield aura is different from quirks, Taisha continued, still. Quirks generally manifest around the age of 4 or earlier, and their bodies are often designed to withstand their abilities or adapt to them in time. However, aura is in all of us, people and Pokemon alike. It is our life force, and to wield and tamper with it is far more dangerous. Not only does it manifest later than quirks, but tales and histories exist of those who try to wield this power recklessly, without training or respect. In turn, as with all tales of power mismanaged, it results in a grave ending. So, I invite you, Mr. Midoriya, to imagine the consequences of a world where such a rare power and ability to be known openly. Gulping fearfully, Izuku did, and he didn't like what his imaginative brain conjured. Quirkless people, once forgotten and overlooked, sought after, even hunted, by everyone, especially governments and organizations with zero qualms about experimenting on them, turned into living weapons, the next most exploitable resource, and those poor gifted souls tormented, tortured, and killed with dabbling with powers they could not understand or wield properly. Izuku shook his head before his theories could grow more gruesome. That's why you are telling me this. You want to train me to wield my aura properly, Izuku realized, staring at the three individuals. Like one for all, before I destroy myself, and others around me. Izuku kept that part to himself, but he knew that was implied, too. All three nodded, though All Might held a concerned frown. Listen, young Midoriya, no one is forcing you into this, Tashinori said softly. You already have enough on your plate with your studies and one for all. If you want to wait or not use your aura, we can dash. No. Izuku's hard voice cut Tashinori off, but as the two's eyes met, Izuku's eyes were soft, understanding, and grateful-looking. I understand your concern, All Might Sensei, and I'm grateful for it, but this doesn't sound like something I can or should put off, either for my sake or for my friends and others. If this involves aura, it could not only affect me, but also my Pokemon. Izuku's Pokeballs opened up, and the 5 Pokemon appeared, Eevee and Pikachu beside him on the couch's cushions, Froakie on the right armrest, and Combuskin and Shelgon standing on the floor. Izuku looked at the 5, each staring at him with the utmost confidence and support. Izuku smiled and nodded back. The 6 of them turned to face the 3 adults with confident smiles and determined eyes blazing with passion. I'm ready, Izuku declared. Please show me more. Taisha's eyes glazed, a blink of an eye causing him to imagine the wispy imaginary forms of 2 teenage boys behind Midoriya, one with wild raven-black hair and a darker tanned one with shorter, choppier brown hair. Each boy had the same eyes as Izuku. Taisha blinked his eyes again, and the boys were gone. They all say the same, but they're never truly ready, Taisha thought resignedly. Very well, Taisha declared, standing up from his chair. Then I believe this should be official. Taisha stuck a hand into his pocket and brought out something familiar to Izuku's eyes. It looked like Taisha's staff from their trip to Lake Verity, only smaller. The diamond globe was there and connected to a horizontal ring with 2 teardrop-shaped metal ornaments and a small 3-inch dark gray tube. With a flick of Taisha's wrist, the object expanded, and Izuku saw, astonished, that the object extended out till Taisher's staff was in the man's hand. By the will of Aura and my authorization, I, Tengoku Taisher, Grand Master of the Azure Council, hereby accept Izuku Midoriya's claims and welcome him to the Order of Aura. Taisher declared with an authority that sent shivers down Izuku's spine. Taisher slammed his staff onto the floor, the sound reverberating through the room louder than it normally should. From this day forth, Izuku Midoriya joins our ranks as pupil trainee. Taisher slammed the staff a second time, its sound once more echoing in the bones of the room's occupants. By Aura's grace, by Arceus's will, so shall it be known. Taisher's staff slammed down a third time, the final echoes like a bell ringing across space and time. The diamond globe glowed blue, and the teardrop ornaments rose and vibrated. A wave of blue light washed across the room, cascading around Izuku's body and within. Izuku took a deep breath, shuddering as he felt something rush inside, something hot yet cooling, like a brand on his soul. Izuku looked to his Pokemon, who met his gaze with similar wide eyes. They had felt it too. Finally, Izuku steadied his breathing, and with a final breath, he stood from the couch and instinctively bowed before Taisher. "Thank you, Master Taisher," Izuku said. "I won't disappoint you." "I'm sure you won't," Taisher thought, yet kept the words to himself and bowed in return, fist over his heart. "Good. Now, as a new initiate of our order, I'm afraid I will have to assign to you your first mission," Taisher announced. "Mission?" Izuku and Toshinori thought, wide-eyed and shocked that the former was being thrown into the deep end already. Niza smirked, chuckling ominously. Taisher's serious look broke as a mischievous smirk grew on his face. "Survive your senpai," Taisher said. "Huh?" Izuku voiced, utterly confused. As if on cue, the door to the room burst open. "Hey.
Hey.
It's you. You finally joined, didn't you?" A bubbly, feminine voice asked. Izuku turned to face the rapidly approaching newcomer, and his eyes widened in disbelief. "It's her," Izuku gasped, the beautiful woman he dreamed of after his battle with Todoroki. The same periwinkle blue hair, the same beaming smile, but where she had crystal blue eyes, they were now royal blue. "Nice to finally meet you, sleepyhead. I'm your senpai, Nijire Hato." Nijire Hato introduced herself with a brilliant smile. "How are you doing?"